Hi gang, Rob here. It's the afternoon of September 2018. Got a little bonus video for you guys tonight. As most of you know who follow the channel, I spent last weekend in Escanaba, Michigan for the September grind-in at Bark River Knives. And one of the things that maybe doesn't come through on my grind-in videos, by the way, video of last week, comprehensive variety coming at you in the next couple days. But one thing I don't think I touch on in those collage videos is the camaraderie that happens, the conversations between knife guys that happen, you know, in the course of the weekend up at Bark River. We were having an interesting conversation late Saturday afternoon as things were winding down in the shop, sitting around the table with oh gosh, who was there? I think Jake Jackway was around the table. I think Dr. Sam might have been around the table. I don't know who all was there, but Jenna Martin, Matt's wife, was there. Matt was still grinding steel at that time of day. And Brian Hill. You guys will remember Brian from my my attempts at comedy. You know, the no collusion guy. That's Brian. A lifelong and dear friend of Mike Stewart's. Brian has a pretty interesting past. I don't know all about it, but he's done a lot of pretty cool things in his life. And at some point a few years ago, he was gotta switch hands. He was invited to a sort of survival clinic. It was put on by a group of Army Rangers, and I think the target audience were survival media types, print media, social media, those kinds of folks, you know, the die-hard survivalist guys. And Brian got invited to this event, and after their first night of camping, the morning came, and you know, they had sort of a little tent community, I guess, a large campsite. Everybody, you know, had their own bivvy, their own tent, and whoever was up first in the morning had the responsibility of making the fire for that morning's breakfast and other activities. And the Rangers, by the way, their setup was a little more elaborate than most. I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, Brian was the first guy up, so he got out to the fire pit, gathered some wood, you know, opened up his pack, and he was well prepared to start fire, meaning he had a butane lighter and lighter fluid. So he doused the kindling with lighter fluid, lit it, and there was a fire. Well, as he was making preparations for the fire, I guess a couple of these survival guys had roused, not really risers, I guess, but the commotion got them up, and they started to murmur a little bit because, you know, this guy who had, you know, no survival cred like they did, this executive type who, you know, was like a square peg in a round hole, Brian Hill, had broken out the lighter fluid and the lighter to start the fire, which, by the way, was blazing away on a cold morning. Well, they came down on him pretty hard, and they kind of gathered, you know, like a lynch mob around the fire, mind you. You know, they weren't going to freeze. So, but they had some stern talking to do with Brian. They informed him that this was a survival clinic, and real survivalists make bow drills, and they use fire steels and tinder that they gather to make their fire. They would never dream of squirting lighter fluid on some kindling and lighting it, because that is just not done. Well, in the midst of this dressing down, a couple of the Rangers started to observe what was going on. They didn't say anything. Didn't say anything at all. And Brian, you know, he's a polite guy. He apologized profusely. And the day went on, and day turned into night, and it was, you know, another day. And the next morning, well, you know, Brian was up first again, but he wasn't going to make the same mistake he had the day before. He just sort of hung out in the tent, and and waited to see if anybody would start the fire. Well, nobody did. And the Rangers were ready, however. You know, the couple of them had talked with Brian a little bit the day before and knew what was going on. And well, a couple of them got up, and one of them blows an aerosol horn to get everybody up. And they announced loudly and authoritatively that there would be a meeting around the fire because we needed to discuss what happened yesterday with the fire etiquette. So, you know, the Rangers, they get out there and they get everybody gathered and they say, we heard that there was some disagreement, some dissent yesterday about the proper method for starting a fire in a survival situation. We want to clear that up for you all right now. And so another quick blast on the aerosol horn, and one of the Rangers emerges from behind their tent. And by the way, their tent was not a single person dwelling. You know, it was a hard-sided canvas tent with guy ropes, solar panels on the roof, and 110-volt electricity powering laptops. They even had a flushing toilet that, you know, pumped water from the creek. These boys knew what they were doing. So after this quick blast on the aerosol horn by the eminently prepared Rangers, one of their crew emerges from behind the tent with a military flamethrower, which he trains on the assembled fire and incinerates the kindling, and there's instant fire. And then the Rangers explained to let that be a lesson to the survivalists. If you prepare, we have technology that far surpasses bow drills, fire steels, and tinder bundles. Point taken. You know, in social media, in the knives, guns, and survival realm, you know, we think we gotta do everything so rudimentally. You know, it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. If I have cotton balls and I have Vaseline or hand sanitizer, and I have a couple Bic lighters in Ziploc bags or dry bags, I guess, you know, having a fire steel is nice, but if all that stuff happens to fail, it's good to know how to use it. But I ain't too proud. I ain't going to be using no bow drill, I can tell you that. I'll have redundancy in my fire-making devices that say Bic on them, and I will have flammable, long-burning tinder. And I'll be warm, and you'll be spinning a stick in a board. That's all for this one, my friends. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word is sharp.